Yeah, like I said, just thanks for your time, guys. I really appreciate it. Um, First of all, I wanted to go back. You did the FIFA fan zone just at Christmas. What was that like?
Did yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
It's absolutely incredible. I think before we went over, we weren't quite sure what it was going to be. Um, and funnily enough, uh, Keith and I performed at the Holland Argentina game, the quarterfinal.
right.
And weirdly enough, we got over there and we were like the FIFA. So obviously we performed just before kickoff, and then we get to sit and watch the match. Yeah, and they're like, "Oh no!" They're like, "There's no tickets." It says you perform and then you have to leave the stadium. We're like,
Yeah,
"What? We can't watch the game." So we're actually performing on the pitch, and then she
Out.
kicked us out of the stadium.
You're
And the
kidding.
same as I think it was Damien Marley performed at half time as well. He wasn't even allowed in
Wow.
until half time to perform, and then they kicked him back out. So we decided to go and look for the fan zones. We said we might as well watch the game,
Yeah, yeah.
and arrived at this fan zone, and it was about that had to be close to 100,000 people in this
Wow.
park. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. But the atmosphere was just absolutely kicking.
I was going to ask. I mean, what was it like being part of that? Because it was a fairly from an outsider, it was a fairly surreal looking World Cup. I mean, what was it like being part of that, or being even in Qatar?
It was absolutely amazing. I have to say, I mean, I know there was a little bit of controversy about whatever was going on at the time, but for us being invited over there to perform at the quarterfinal of the World Cup, big football fans.
Yeah,
Honest to God, the way it was run, the infrastructure, the professionalism, down to the smallest thing of picking up your passes to go to the game,
yeah, yeah,
everything was
Incredible.
just run so smoothly, so professionally. It was the atmosphere. There was, obviously, you didn't have the usual drunken louts all over the
yeah,
place.
Yeah,
The alcohol levels were very low. There was families out with kids in pushchairs. It was a safe environment for everybody to go to. And it really, really, really was an amazing experience. I
yeah,
mean, both Brian and I have performed in front of massive audiences. I
yeah,
mean, when we played the likes of Hyde Park, you're playing in front of 125,000 people. We've
yeah,
played in front of huge amounts of people, but to go on a pitch for a World Cup quarterfinal and perform for the audience, it was one of those pinch yourself moments. It was
yeah,
just the two of us had a smile on our face from the time we arrived to the time we left. It was just an amazing experience.
yeah.
yeah.
It looked brilliant. I mean, I've got to ask though. I mean, are you big FIFA players? And if so, who's better out of the two of you?
I used to
No, I'm
play
not a
years
gamer
ago. I
at all,
stopped
mate.
playing it. Yeah, I have it. I have it. I got the PlayStation 5 only recently, actually. I was always a big PlayStation fan, but I couldn't get my hands on a PS5 at all, and I got it recently. But to be honest with you, as soon as you have a new child in the house, any free time for playing FIFA has just gone out the window. It's gone out the window. But
Um,
yeah, I'm a big fan of the game. I do like it.
I've got it. My son is a keen, FIFA player, and we've got the PlayStation 5 in the house here. We played the Tiger Woods golf game together
Right,
most
yeah, yeah,
evenings. And we play live online, so we can get mates and all to join in. I think Brian has joined in once or twice as well, and we can play proper golf tournaments. But when it
oh,
comes to
brilliant.
FIFA, I don't get it at all because I can't win. I can't beat my son, and I'm very competitive, and I'll end up grounding him for 6 months for beating me. And the problem with that is he's 27 years of age.
Doesn't work, does it? Doesn't work at that age.
No, it
No,
doesn't.
no, no.
Still do it though.
Brilliant. I mean, going on then. I mean, you're going back out on tour in a couple of months. Second part of the tour now. I mean, what can fans expect from these shows? Is it different to the last run of dates you did last year?
But it's
No,
it's
it's the
not going to
same
be a
show.
million miles away. But it is the same show, but it doesn't matter whether it's part one, part two, or whatever show we're doing. Whenever we go out in block dates of a tour, we always change something. We'll always add a few new songs. So even though this is technically part two of the old school tour, which we did late last year, like we've already talking today, we're already adding two or three new songs. We're changing up different parts of big different sections of the show. We're changing costume. There's always something changing about our shows. We
Yeah.
always like to, and it's not just for the fans. It is for the fans, but not just for them, but for us too.
Yeah,
You know, it keeps us on our toes. It keeps us excited. It keeps it fresh for us by changing up the set list and every time just to have that one or two new songs that we haven't done before. It brings back that little nervous tension, you know, because I think if you do the same set forever, it becomes clockwork and you just, you know, it becomes mechanical and you just start and finish it. So just by putting in those couple of little curveballs for ourselves that make us have to think and think of the lyrics and all of that, keeps us on our toes.
Okay, but that being said, though, I mean, you've both got two massive back catalogues. I mean, the history of both of you. There must be some go-to songs that you've got to play. I mean, is that the case?
Yeah. I mean, between Westlife and Boyzone, I think we've over 20 UK #1 hit songs. So when you're sitting down to put a set list together, it's not like we struggle because that's 20 UK #1s.
It's a massive.
We've over 50 top 5 singles. You know, so even when we're fed up doing the #1s, we still have a huge amount of songs to choose from and to pick from. Obviously, the ones that go down well are the big boomers like World of Our Own, Flying Without Wings, Picture of You, No Matter What, Swear It Again, Love Me for a Reason. You know, big songs that back in the 90s just dominated the charts for such a long time. And you know, I mean, there was a time and place where Boyzone appealed to the teeny bopper market, and you know, the hit songs would go in at #1 for a week and drop out. But then there was a time where Boyzone and then Westlife to follow became such a household name that the songs wouldn't only appeal to the teeny boppers, they'd be appealing to their parents, they'd be appealing to even to a male audience. And we wouldn't just go in and out for a week, we'd be in the charts for weeks on end. And those are the songs that people, it's bizarre because we do get a lot of women bringing their husbands along, girlfriends bringing their boyfriends along. You can see that they might not necessarily be overjoyed by the fact that they're
folded for the first 10 minutes. Arms folded for the first 10 minutes.
Yeah. And then you look into the audience where you see somebody that might have unnerved you when we start their show. They're unnerving a bit because they're a big lad and they're not happy to be there. And then you look down after 2 weeks and they're singing their lungs out. They're completely, you know, enthralled by the whole night, which is bizarre to see. And then obviously when we notice that, we pinpoint them out, get a spotlight on them, and we embarrass the shit out of them.
I can't remember who it was I saw years ago. It was at the Hexagon in Reading, and I was stood there, and there was a group of old women. They must have been in their 80s, and they were up on their feet. And all of a sudden, it went quiet between songs, and all I heard was, "Go on, Beryl, throw your bra at him." He was like, "Yeah, that's how it should be."
Whose show? Who was singing?
I can't remember who it was. It was a boy band. I mean, it was that boy band, but I just can't. I think it may have been A1 or 911. It was one of those bands.
Hang on. If it was 911, it would have worked as a parachute. They're fucking tiny.
It stuck with me because it was one of those moments where you're like, I really don't want to turn around.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you're touring for Old School. I mean, just in terms of the title, was there something particular that influenced that or inspired
it? The Old School title kind of sums up what our whole concept for the Boyzlife sound and moving forward from Boyzone and Westlife. And you know, we sat down and tried to discuss angles and options of where we could go from where we were, because we'd done 30 years of Boyzone and all the songs from Westlife for the last 25 years, and we got to a point where it's like, right, what we do now moving forward has to be something original. So when we sat down and we talked about different production styles and different song types, and you know, I think what we wanted was, Keith and I wanted to make an album that we would have loved. You know, that if we were teenagers growing up, it's the music that if it was on radio when we were kids, we'd have bought it and we'd have loved it. So we had this whole thing about every time we'd write a song, can you imagine this being in the Karate Kid or, you know, Three Men and a Baby or one of these big 90s movies that we grew up watching? And if you could imagine it being on the soundtrack of that, then it's going to make the album. So that was what Old School was about. Everything to us felt, whether it be the sound of the music or the looks in the photographs or whatever we're doing, everything was pointing back to what we would class as old school for us, which is 80s and 90s. So that's what it is.
Era for music. It's a
theme, basically, the Old School.
It's a great era for music. I mean,
best.
Back to that.
Best.
You've talked about your childhood and stuff. I mean, what was what were your first memories of music really making an impact on your life, or kind of changing your life? Was there a particular
Music.
band in the 80s or 90s that kind of had that impact?
I think we had very different experiences, Keith, didn't we? Because I know you were a massive U2 fan, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I was a marching drummer. I was in the Dublin All Stars marching band playing the side drum, and obviously Larry Mullen was a huge influence on my life growing up, and you know all the early U2 songs. I mean, I just remember being out in my little garden shed. I'd have to climb underneath my floor tom to get to the seat. I was in this little wooden 6x6 garden shed with two candles. I'd go out with 5 sweatshirts on to practice in the evening because it'd be freezing. And by the time we get 3 or 4 U2 songs in, I'd probably be bare chested there playing the drums like a caveman. But yeah, my influences were very much U2. But I loved all the 80s music. I loved all the albums that now that I call 34 or whatever it was back in the day, where you had all the 80s bands like Aha and Pet Shop Boys and Depeche Mode and Duran Duran, Simple Minds, all those 80s bands, Mike and the Mechanics, Genesis, like all those bands. Like I loved all those. Frankie Goes to Hollywood, all those feel good, lyrically kind of genius songs from the 80s. That was all my influence. And Neil Diamond and Billy Joel. I mean, my dad was a singer. My dad was a singer on the amateur circuit. He was in a couple of show bands. We had show bands here, in the 70s and the 80s. Show bands were big in Ireland because a lot of the big UK artists and the big American artists wouldn't come and perform in Ireland because of the troubles here at the time. They were fearful to come here and perform. So we had a lot of talent in the country, and we had a lot of people that kind of started these tribute acts to the actual stars because they wouldn't tour here. So my dad was involved in performing in some of those groups, and he did a great Neil Diamond impression. He did a great Billy Joel impression. So those performers were big for me, because going to watch my dad performing as a kid was really exciting, to watch him up on stage and hitting the high notes, and they were the songs he sang. Frank Sinatra, he was a bit of a crooner as well. Wow. He sang a lot of Frank songs. So I mean, I suppose it was my dad really that was my biggest influence, and Leo Sayer. I remember.
Parents were both.
I remember listening to Leo Sayer's tape, from the cassette tape, on holidays from start to finish every day.
Yeah, I was going to ask, was your dad a big influence on your musical career then, and you got into that kind of career?
Absolutely. I mean, from the time I was a young child, watching my dad on stage performing was all I ever wanted to do. Just to see that elation from the audience, because the girls in the audience used to kind of swoon after him, and I was only about 12 or 13, and to see that was really cool. On a very amateur basis, like I say, never expected to reach the levels that we did in Boyzone or whatever. But it was disappointing also for me in the early days, because I never got to do much of the lead vocals. I was never up front, and I didn't get much of the glory. It was all Ronan Keaton and Stephen Gately that got most of the front and stuff in Boyzone. So that was a bit disappointing for me, and it was very disappointing actually for my dad. My dad used to get a little bit frustrated with the fact that I never got the opportunity to get out there up in front, and which is why the Boyzlife thing really means an awful lot to me. Apart from the fact that I love what I do, is that I lost my dad a year ago, but before he died, he got to see Brian and I get together. He got to hear all the songs that we wrote for the old school album. He was kind of like, an unpaid A&R guy on the album, because my dad was brutally honest. We'd send him a demo of one of the songs, and he'd go, "That's a fucking turkey. What the fuck are you doing with that?" He'd say, "Why don't I like that bit in the chorus, and I like that bit in the verse, but why don't you change something?" And I'd go back and say to Brian, "Here, when you hear what my dad said, he said we should do this," and Brian's going, "I think your dad's onto something there, Duster. Let's try it." So, yeah, he was a big influence on me and us.
Yeah.
I mean, you talked about kind of the 90s and the bands that influenced you, but I mean, you became kind of 90s pinups. You were posters on everyone's walls, both bands. I mean, who was on whose posters were on your wall, and who were your kind of childhood crushes?
Cindy Crawford and Pamela Anderson.
Yeah, I think any kid that was born kind of late 70s, early 80s had a Pamela Anderson poster on their wall come the 90s.
Yep.
We all entered puberty at the same time, and I think she guided all of our penises towards puberty.
Brilliant. Okay, I mean,
Cindy Crawford as well. Cindy Crawford in her heyday was gorgeous.
what about somebody like the Bangles or somebody like that?
Yeah. Actually, you know what? What was the lead singer's name from the Pow?
Carol Decker.
I had a weird. Yeah. I had a weird crush on her as well. That was weird.
Yeah,
we went Stephen Bryan done a TV show with her a couple of years ago, and it was like, oh my god. Yeah, time has gone on.
Yeah, she was trying to pump it, mate. When she kind of finished, she had a restaurant near us. And
Carol Decker.
Yeah, down in Reading. She used to own out towards Oxford. It's a beautiful restaurant.
Oh, so another one was Belinda Carlisle.
Yeah,
Belinda Carlisle was gorgeous.
Yeah, they all were. Okay, I mean, one thing you touched on was about a lot of bands not kind of touring Ireland because of the troubles and obviously the problems over there. But, I mean, in general, what was the pop scene like over there?
There was none.
For us, you mean?
Yeah.
There was none before Boyzone.
Right.
No, Boyzone kind of broke the mold. I mean, Ireland was very proud of their traditional music, obviously their trad music, but they were also very, very proud of the rock success that they'd had around the world. For a country with such a small population, statistically to have the type of success that we had worldwide was amazing. You know, the likes of Sinead O'Connor, U2, you know, the Cranberries, Therapy, you know, like the Hothouse Flowers, you know, there was so many, Clannad. There was so many very internationally successful bands from Ireland that when Boyzone started, we weren't liked at all. I mean, they really didn't embrace us at all. We were like slagged off and criticized on the radio. The papers were quite mean to us, and we were only young guys. Remember, we were only 16, 17 years of age, so it was very difficult because we had our dreams and aspirations of what we wanted to achieve within our section of the music business, which is a pop group, a boy band, a band that doesn't play musical instruments on stage. You know, and these are the things. The TV presenters were very condescending towards us when we started. And it was only when we got some big hits in the UK, when Love Me For a Reason went to #2 for Christmas in the UK, and we went home that Christmas for Christmas, we were invited back on the Late Late Show where we first appeared a few years earlier. And we were welcomed back with open arms. Our boys come home. All of a sudden, because we'd had international success, we were now okay to come home and be celebrated, you know. But it was tough. It was tough. We started off playing in farm barns, leisure centres on the back of 40-foot trucks, you know, nightclubs that would put two tables together, mask and tape them together, and that was our stage. You know, we got ice thrown at us, we got money like twopences thrown at us. I mean, we really did kind of graft our way up. We had no money for clothes, so we used to wear. Shane's dad was a mechanic, and he had his own garage, and he gave us 5 sets of overalls, orange overalls, that we used to wear on stage as our outfits. You know, so we opened all the doors for Westlife coming along. They came along, they went straight onto our arena tour. They were dressed in Gucci and Prada and had a record contract for like 20 million. Our first music video, we had a budget of $4.5 grand. Westlife's first music video, they had a budget of 350 grand. You know,
I was gonna say, the suit I wore in the first video cost $4.5 grand.
Wow.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean, what are your memories of the early days, Brian? What was it, a struggle for you guys?
Very different than Keith's, obviously, because you know we were very lucky that we obviously were part of Louis Walsh's stable, so everything was kind of given to us. You know what I mean? We didn't have to go and do all those shows, the small shows around Ireland. We didn't have to really do the struggle phase. We went straight in and we got a record deal pretty much within weeks of starting. We already had the songs all written. Steve Mack had written all the songs for the band already. It's like, so like Fly Me That Wings, Swear It Again, all those massive hits were already written before we even signed. So it all happened very easy. And, you know, we put for a single, it goes to #1. And then our first show was in front of 15,000 people on a support stage with Boyzone. But because we were because obviously we were from the same stable, and Ronan was part of the management team with Louis, you know, we weren't even treated like a support act, because most support acts would just have a, you know, a curtain, a kabuki, that they call it, a curtain in front of the stage, and had one spotlight on them. We had all the lights, we had everything. We were spoiled rotten, you know, from day one. So, yeah, I don't ever have any memories of there ever being a struggle. It was from the day I got into Westlife, it felt like, you know, it felt like someone win the lottery, I guess. You just knew everything was going to happen because it was all planned out for you and put in front of you. So we never had the struggle phase. It was always just dreamland for us.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, one thing you mentioned about kind of Ireland being quite a small pop scene. Before Westlife and before Boyzone, had you two guys crossed paths? Were you aware of each other?
No, we were
only in the drive-through McDonald's in Artane once. Brian was flipping burgers. I was looking me Porsche. No, we never met until '98 when Westlife joined Boyzone on stage.
Yeah,
I was only in school when Keith started Boyzone. I was still in school, so yeah. Well, there was only a few years between us. So by the time I'd left school and joined Westlife, we pretty much, that's when we met. Yeah, that's when I met the rest of the boys. So, yeah.
Brian's only 42. I'm 50 next year.
Oh, I've got a year on you. I was 50 last August.
Stinger, you old fuckers.
Definitely. Every time I go to the barbers, there's just more grey hair on the floor now. It's depressing.
At least there's hair on the floor. It'd be worse if there was none.
But you know what though? You must be the same. Are you at the stage now where there was a stage where I hated the grey in my beard, and now I just want it to be all grey? Because it's getting there. It's over halfway now. So I want it all to be grey. I want to go the full Philip Schofield now.
It wasn't the grey that upset me. It was more when we sat there and he said, "Have you ever suffered from gout?" And I didn't know at that point.
I have.
Yeah, I just.
What's gout got to do with your hair?
I don't know. It popped up in conversation. I didn't know how to answer him. It's like, do you want your eyebrows?
You sure you went to a doctor, not a barber?
Because gout, I recently got diagnosed with gout arthritis.
Right.
So what gout is it's a buildup of uric acid in your body, which crystallizes. It's what causes kidney stones.
Right.
But you can get it. A lot of men, if they've a rich diet of red wine and red meat, they can get really sore toes, and the pain can be horrendous.
Yeah,
I don't have that. I've got gout arthritis, where any load-bearing joints, like my shoulders, my knees, my elbows. Geez, the pain can be horrendous some days. It's terrible. I'm off red wine. I'm off red meat. I'm doing everything I can to try and keep it at a minimum. But
do you remember
it is one of those things that getting old.
Boy bands. Do you remember we used to be in boy bands, little pop stars? Here we are sitting now talking about having gout, drinking red wine, and our beards going grey. What happened to us?
on a Zoom playing with your pussy.
Imagine teenage girls.
No idea what was going to go on behind me.
Looking at this,
apologize.
Here, there's going to be women looking at this interview going, I can't believe I had them on my posters and them on my wall. Those old fuckers.
Brilliant. Well, I mean, just to kind of wrap up then, I mean, you've obviously got the tour coming up. I mean, going beyond that, what's your kind of plans for Boyzlife?
More music. You know, I think it's very important for us to keep creating music. And obviously the music industry has changed now. So we got to think outside the box as well. We've done the original album. We probably will write more music, but I don't know if we'll release an album again. We might end up just maybe writing a couple of songs a year and just constantly releasing singles, because I think the day of actually going off and writing a whole album as a piece of work, those days are pretty much gone. So I think we'll always write songs, and when we have something, we'll probably just put it out. But to be honest with you, our career is mainly focused around touring. You know, it's our bread and butter. It's what we love to do the most, traveling around the world and doing live concerts. So I think that's probably for our future is our main priority for the next few years.
Yeah. I mean, is it going to fit in around kind of other schedules? Because I guess you guys have got other stuff going on and you must be busy with other stuff. Is it kind of one of those things that you can kind of come and go to?
Well, it is, but we choose not to do that. We choose to work as regularly as we can. I mean, we don't only do the touring shows, we do festivals all through the summer. Yeah. We do a lot of corporate work, we do a lot of private parties and stuff like that. We've a lot of acquaintances that are very high up in certain organizations, and and businesses, and they hire us to come in and do private performances and stuff like that. So we're constantly on the go. We're constantly traveling. I mean, we're just back from Amsterdam. We're on to Denmark next week. The week after that, we're on to Kuala Lumpur and on to Manila in the Philippines. Then we're back to Dubai. You know, before we even start the UK tour in May, we've got a good trip around the world. So, you know, to be honest, we know we're not going to be around forever. We love what we do. We try to book our gigs where there's a golf course that we haven't played yet, and we incorporate a lot of golf with our gig. But even the tour in May, Brian and I were only sitting down yesterday talking about where we're going to stay after each show, so that when we wake up the next day, what golf course we're going to play, you know, and instead of staying up partying all night and you know, killing ourselves, we really don't drink that much these days. We get to bed at a reasonable hour, and we get up and we use the gym, and we enjoy our golf, you know, we enjoy life a lot more.
Brilliant. Well, I mean, it's been great talking to you guys. I mean, I'm looking forward to hopefully get to one of the shows and we can carry this on face to face, because it's been a lot of fun. You know,
come and catch one of the shows, because you'll definitely hear more of that. Throw your knickers at him, Bridie.
Have you got any message for Beryl and her mates coming out throwing the brows at you before we wrap up?
Yeah, make sure your bra and knickers are clean if they're in your pocket.
Yeah. And the like back in the 90s when they flicked their little G-string on stage, it was one thing. But now when they're throwing those big Bridget Jones knickers on stage, they knock us out.
Brilliant. Perfect.
All right, Graham. Thanks a million.
No, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Graham.
We'll catch up soon.
Okay,
Take care,
mate. Thanks, buddy.
Cheers, buddy. Cheers. Bye.